Given the somewhat viral nature of this video, 126,000 views in 4 days, I thought I would readdress a couple of the points in it. Now, let me say right off the bat, the biggest response I've gotten from this is this make-believe fantasy fiction about there being some standing order in all of these prisons to either gas or shoot the prisoners. That is ridiculous in the extreme. They couldn't do it now because of the manpower that would be required. There's 2.3 million. Even, like I said, the top 10% of the worst, 250,000 people. They're not going to just shoot them and leave them. A bunch of guards probably wouldn't show up for work. That's for sure, given the nature of COs at prisons in America and the situation we're talking about. Collapse of the electric grid, collapse of the economy. People will be holing up. Just like I had alleged here. The difference that I'm saying is that don't be so attached to your preps or your place that you're not ready to, if the shit gets hot, to throw something in a vehicle and get the hell out of Dodge. Now, the second thing that people have said about this is that they think everything's going to be gone by the time any type of release would happen. Gone is a relative thing. It'll have changed hands, sure. But you have to remember who you're dealing with and the mentality. You can't be awake 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, having a bead on all 4 cardinal directions day and night. If you live like that, you'll be a basket case within weeks. The only chance someplace would have of surviving is if it was a large group of people with a heavy amount of organization where there were roving patrols and a long-term plan to support a large group of people. Small groups, 8, 10, and 12, are toast. Simply, they will run out of energy, time, resources. And guys like this, what I'm showing here is this guy, that in New York, when they got out of Max, they escaped this place. The first place they ran was for the hills. They didn't go back into the cities. They didn't go back to try to blend in. They're heading for the middle of nowhere. This is who's coming. This is who's coming. Nothing to lose, hard as nails, used to being miserable. I'll say it again. You call it shit hits the fan. They call it Tuesday. And you can sit out there and say, well, I'm going to shoot him, I'm going to shoot him, I'm going to shoot him. You can't be awake 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, covering all 4 cardinal directions. They might have one group run at you from one direction while another comes from another. And yes, they are organized. They're gangs. You don't stand a chance. This is what I see happening with preppers. Everybody's all excited about it the first week, the first 10 days. But a lot of you folks are family types. And you'll have kids and teenagers and people that didn't sign up for it. You go 2 weeks right now without Wi-Fi? And people that are used to it, having access to information all the time, they're going to start to fall apart. Prisoners, however, won't. Why? Because that's been their life. They haven't had all of the things you're trying to preserve. They're used to being without it. That's part of their day. So anything they would get would be a win for them. What you would call a bad day, they call a good day. And I don't care how many times you've been tactical camping. You're not prepared for what's coming. Now, I know this is not what you've been taught for the last 20 years on YouTube, and I know it's going to throw you into cognitive dissonance. It doesn't mean it's not the truth. And I'm not trying to mock anyone. But you have to understand the difference in your perspective and their perspective. They will get out, one way or the other. There is not some large magical plan from the deep state to gas anything or guillotines. Does that even literally make sense? You need somebody to operate a guillotine. And you think during that situation that you're going to have all of these prisoners just cooperating and standing in line, waiting for their chance to have their head cut off? We have riots now when shit hasn't hit the fan. Can you imagine if they start all of a sudden don't have half of their guards? These guys aren't stupid. They'll figure it out. There's guys that escape from prison now. Millennial prison guards in America aren't going to show up for work and just start gunning people down with automatic weapons. And the guys that you're talking about that might have the ability to do that aren't going to waste their time and their ammunition killing prisoners. They're going to take it home and protect their loved ones with it. I'll say it again. Why would you do that? If you're a guard and you've got those types of weapons and access to that kind of ammunition, why in the world would you waste it that way instead of just hanging on to it, going home and protecting your loved ones with it? As a prepper, you wouldn't provide ammunition for that. Why do you think anyone else would? Groups like this are going to form, and they're going to be hodgepodges. Some people will be former ex-cons, some people will be former military, some people will just be troublemakers, and there'll be some good folks as well. But there's going to be no way to delineate. And if you're out in the middle of nowhere, and a group like this comes, and you don't have the ability to run, or you're too arrogant, the ones you love are going to pay the price for it. Because remember, you want to preserve everything you have. Even if they only take 10% of what you have, that's a win for them. Even if they've got to burn the place with Molotov cocktails from a distance, they'll do it. Smoke bombs are easy. They start lobbing 24 smoke bombs over your property where you can't see anybody coming from any direction. Somebody will get in. And it'll be mayhem, and nobody's coming. That's the whole point of this map, was this. Preppers, if you're right, great. But you're only right on a certain clock. And that clock will start ticking the minute things fall apart. If you're wrong, the day that comes, you got no plan B. You got no fallback plan. And we are so ingrained with this 911 mentality, you'll have no place to go. And also remember something too. The authorities are going to see you as much of a threat as they'll see those people. And you're going to be an easy target because they're going to know where you're at. Because I know some guys are going to take pot shots at whoever comes down the road. And if they're in some kind of a official vehicle, you're going to be one of those prisoners eventually, or dead. And that was the point that I made here. And I think that's part of a lot of it, that there's this apocalyptic end of the world, I'd rather die mentality, which literally is not survivalism. It's not prepperism. It's just suicide and masochism. Being someplace, and I'm saying, and I'll say this again for the last time, there are places that will stand back up. May not be the government we like. It may not be the situation we like. But getting back to where there's air conditioning and there's a job to go to and the streets aren't clogged and there's gas in the gas station and there's food in the grocery store, that's going to be the goal. And they're going to make priority. So if you're going to be out in the middle of nowhere, be out in the middle of nowhere in Texas, be out in the middle of nowhere in California, be out in the middle of nowhere in Florida, Virginia, New York, or these places. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, your chances are much less likely that you're going to make it through any shit hits the fan scenario. So, like I said, don't count on some giant plan for the government. If the government falls apart, who the hell is going to organize this mass execution of 2.3 million people? No one. No one's going to enforce it. It's not going to happen. It might, even if it is a plan now, it's not enforceable during that time. And nobody's just going to show up for work and waste their ammunition. So, we'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.